Hiya! Welcome! In today's video, I thought that I would take a look with you, of course, at my British comedy collection on DVD, and there's a couple of Blu-rays in there as well. I am a massive sitcom fan. British sitcoms, there's some American ones that I'm a big fan of as well, but this is my British comedy on television and a little bit of film collection that we're going to look at. And I think I'm going to split this video into two parts. First and foremost, because I think it'll be just too long a video just to go from start to finish. And also, it means I've then got two videos for my Video a Day in April challenge rather than one. So this is by no means an exhaustive look at all my favourite sitcoms of all time, because there's ones that I don't own on DVD. Either I never have, or I may have owned them on DVD in the recent or distant past, such as Fawlty Towers, The Young Ones, Father Ted. All those are so readily available on streaming services, and I'm a constant subscriber to services like Netflix and BritBox, as well as your free services like All4. But I still watch a lot of comedy that I don't actually physically own, but I just stream it now. Here is all my collection currently, as things stand today, or at least half of it, the first part that I have for British comedy. And I'll start with the oldest. We'll go from the 60s to the end of the 70s in this part, I think. And it is this set here. This is the complete series of Pardon the Expression, which was an ITV sitcom, a Granada production. And this was originally broadcast, I'm trying to find the date on here, I'll put it up on screen anyway, 1965 I think, and it ran till I believe 1966. As you can see, this stars the legendary, one of my all-time favourite comedy actors, Arthur Lowe. And the interesting thing, and probably the one thing that people kind of know Pardon the Expression for, is that this is a spin-off from the British soap opera Coronation Street, as Arthur Lowe played a character on Coronation Street for about 4 or 5 years, right at the very start of Coronation Street's existence, 1960 till I think 64 or 65 he left. He played Leonard Swindley, and it is his character Leonard Swindley who gets his own sitcom vehicle. So quite an unusual quirk that a soap opera could spawn a situation comedy, but that's exactly what happened here. Arthur Lowe left Coronation Street and he became the star in his own sitcom. This was released on network. This set, I haven't had it awful long time, maybe a year and a half. Haven't finished it yet. It's okay. It's all black and white. Some of the episodes are kind of like a little bit worse than others in relation to actual picture quality, but you know, everything's watchable. There's no subtitles or anything, no extras neither. It is just all the surviving episodes, and I think all the episodes survived of this. It's set in a department store. It's not like Are You Being Served or anything. It's rather more sort of, I don't want to say straight-laced. It's kind of funny in places. I just like it because I'm a massive Coronation Street fan, so this is kind of an interesting curio in the Corrie universe for me. 36 episodes on this, and an unseen Christmas special that was filmed for the 1965 Christmas period, but it was never actually shown. That gets its debut on this set. There's some interesting co-stars on here, such as John Le Mesurier, who would go on to co-star with Arthur Lowe in Dad's Army, which we'll talk about in a moment, and Betty Driver, who of course is very well known in the Coronation Street fan universe as Betty Turpin, but she didn't play Betty Turpin in this. She played a completely different character, and that was before she was cast on Corrie. A very interesting, if not massively brilliant sitcom this. I just like having things like this in my collection that's a little bit obscure. I'm glad I've got this, and I think I got it on sale as well, and I got it for like really cheap. Pardon the expression. So sticking with Arthur Lowe, and I've got 3 things here that I'll quickly show you, is of course one of the all-time greats in British comedy. It is Dad's Army, and this is the complete collection. This contains every episode, every surviving episode, because there was some, I think mainly from series 2 of Dad's Army, that were wiped, and a couple of them I think have been animated in more recent years and restored via the medium of cartoon. All the episodes from 1968 to 1977 and related Christmas specials titles and things. It's a proper official BBC box set, so it's got full subtitles and stuff on. That's got the first, second, third, fourth and fifth series, and then this section here has got the 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th series and the Christmas specials. And this isn't the only part of my Dad's Army collection, as I've also got the original movie on DVD. This was of course the spin-off movie from the sitcom, and this was from 1971. And although this isn't from the 70s, obviously this is very recent, I've also got the more recent remake or the recent reboot of Dad's Army for the cinema audience as well. This one, I always forget when this one came out, it wasn't that long ago, 2015 I think, according to the copyright on there. This movie, really like it, and this one, you know, I think this got mixed reviews at the time, but I think the casting in this is excellent, I really do. The storyline could have been a bit better, I suppose. This one, of course, stars people like Toby Jones, Catherine Zeta-Jones is in this, Blake Harrison, who is more famous for being Neil from The Inbetweeners. A lot of famous faces in here, people you'll recognise. Michael Gambon from the Harry Potter series, he played Dumbledore, he's in this as well. I've got so many happy memories of going to my grandparents every Saturday, and this always been on around tea time, just repeated. And obviously Dad's Army I think finished before I was born. I think the last series, Series 9, was 1977, 3 years before I was born. It still holds many childhood memories because it's just something that was repeated without fail every Saturday tea time, and the whole family loved it. Me, my brother, my parents, my grandparents, my aunties. It was just something that we could all just sit and watch and really enjoy. And it's a great show, and it's funny as well. You don't need me to tell you about Dad's Army, it's brilliant. The next set is one that I haven't owned that long, a couple of years maybe. It is the complete Some Mothers Do Have 'Em. Another childhood favourite. I mean, Frank Spencer, played by Michael Crawford, he was really the Mr. Bean of the 70s. And there again, being an 80s child, this was something that was repeated a lot when I was growing up as well. Some Mothers Do Have 'Em, not my very favourite sitcom. And I think the third series of this is a little bit unusual, as they seem to totally change Frank Spencer's personality. He becomes a lot more assertive and almost a little bit kind of pompous in a way, whereas there was more of a sort of childish innocence to him and his various pratfalls in the first couple of series. But even so, still a very consistently funny sitcom. Everyone knows Some Mothers Do Have 'Em in the UK, everyone knows Frank Spencer. I'm very happy to have this in my collection. Now, one set that's quite unusual, and this does contain some things that go beyond the 1970s period that we're looking at in this video, but it is this Ultimate Ronnie Barker DVD collection. And what this contains is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This contains 6 different Ronnie Barker vehicles. So it's a lot of viewing material. Let me try and find the running length. Yeah, there's 36 hours 45 minutes of viewing on here, so a lot to get through, and I haven't even got through all this yet. So what this is, this compiles all of Ronnie Barker's best known BBC sitcoms. So we've got his 7 of 1 series, which was, for those who don't know, kind of a pilot series of separate stories, but they were sort of filmed as like sitcom pilot episodes, and that was the series there, 7 of 1 there, that spawned Open All Hours and Porridge. And there's some other pilots in this series here starring Barker that weren't made into full series. Then we have each disc of Porridge being the early 70s Ronnie Barker classic, really popular show. There again, one that I remember a lot from my childhood, even though it was at least a decade older at that point. We've got the Porridge spin-off, or Porridge follow-up I should say, Going Straight. Only one series made of that in the late 70s I think. Very good, not as good as Porridge, it didn't have that prison setting, but still well worth watching if you're a Porridge fan. And of course we've got Open All Hours. I loved Open All Hours when I was younger, still like it now, still think it's a great show, sort of a nice warm northern sitcom. Of course it co-stars David Jason, right before he was about to make it big as Del Boy in Only Fools and Horses. Yeah, Only Fools and Horses is one of my all-time favourites and the sort of thing that I can re-watch a lot. I own that digitally now. I have that for iTunes rather than DVD. So then ones that I wasn't familiar with particularly make up the rest of this set. It's a sitcom set in Wales called The Magnificent Evans. and there was just one series of that. Looking at it, there's only one disc, and then a series, I think this was the last programme Ronnie Barker filmed before he retired from acting in the late 80s. This is Clarence. I can't quite remember, he might have played a removal man in there. I've not seen all of that. So if you're into Ronnie Barker, obviously it doesn't feature anything from the two Ronnies in or anything he did for ITV. But if you're into Ronnie Barker and sitcoms, then this is a box set well worth looking out for. There's just so much to get to on here. Porridge and Open All Hours are the standouts. 7 of 1, actually. I do really enjoy that anthology pilot type series as well. Oh, and I forgot to show you, I've also got the Porridge movie on DVD. Just a very sort of cheap edition, this. Nothing overly exciting. I think it's got subtitles on it as far as I can tell. Yes, it has. It's a good film, that. Another one like a lot of these sitcom to cinema crossovers that happened in the 70s. I do like this movie. Back to ITV and 1970s ITV sitcoms. This is something, and I've talked about the movie, and I'll quickly show that again in a sec, recently as I got it on Blu-ray and unboxed it in a recent video, but this is the complete TV series of Man About the House. This started, I think this was around 1973. Every episode of every series in here. Love this. Just something about, and I won't say every sitcom from that era was good, because there's a lot of kind of ropey stuff that relied too much on racial stereotyping of the era. But for your sort of slightly smutty, but not in an overly rude way, just sort of funny nudge nudge wink wink type 70s comic innuendo, then stuff like Man About the House is fantastic. Really love this. Not a lot to say. Sadly there's no subtitles or anything on this. I do like to have subtitles on things where possible. As being hard of hearing, it does help me follow the story, as it were, a bit more, but it doesn't matter that it doesn't. There again, another thing released by Network, who I think are a great company for these old ITV situation comedies. And of course, I won't show you this for very long, but you already saw this if you watched a recent video of mine. This is the companion movie for Man About the House on Blu-ray. I watched this the other week, very nicely tidied up. Subtitles are on it as well. Really happy to pick this up finally. So the last few things are Man About the House spin-offs, and here is my favourite. This may actually be my favourite sitcom out of all the box sets and things that I've been showing you in this video. It is George and Mildred, starring Eutha Joyce and Brian Murphy. George and Mildred Roper were, of course, the young flatmates in Man About the House as landlords and landlord and landlady, and they lived downstairs in the big house. This was the spin-off or the follow-up where George and Mildred, Mr. and Mrs. Roper, moved to kind of suburbia and got into scrapes and annoyed their next door neighbour, Mr. 4 Mile. I love George and Mildred. I love Man About the House, but unusually for kind of a spin-off, I think George and Mildred actually tops it. I just think there's so many proper laugh-out-loud funny moments in, and I don't think George and Mildred really gets the credit it's due as just being a really funny, consistently good sitcom. Yeah, it's of its time. It looks dated like pretty much most of this stuff does now. It's smutty there again. It's not very PC looking at it almost 50 years later, but it is just so funny. And I've also got the spin-off film for George of Mildred. It's probably a slightly weaker spin-off film. There's also a tinge of sadness when you watch this, as this was Eutha Joyce's final appearance in anything before she died. In fact, I think they were due to make another series of George and Mildred after they'd shot this film, but Eutha Joyce passed away soon after from long-standing problems with alcoholism. So this came out, I think it was either 1979 or 1980. It's good, it's certainly worth a watch. It's not been re-released on Blu-ray. If it is, I would like to pick that up at some point. The audio and video quality on this is pretty good, but it's kind of a little bit bittersweet because you just know that the series is over. An interesting thing about after Eutha Joyce, who played Mildred, passed away, there was talk that there was going to be a further spin-off, which was just go to star Brian Murphy as George Roper, but him coming to terms with life as a widower, but it never got made, and I'm kind of glad it didn't get made. I think once George and Mildred were parted forever, as it were, then it was a good time to close the chapter on that particular couple, I think. Last thing I'm going to show you in this video is the other Man About the House spin-off, and this is the weakest of that kind of trilogy, that sort of ITV Robin Tripp / Rothers triumvirate, as I like to call it, and it is Robin's Nest. For a long time, I didn't want this in my collection. I loved Man About the House, loved George and Mildred, but every Robin's Nest episode that I saw on TV, I kind of liked it, but I thought this is nowhere near as good as Man About the House and G&M. But this was on sale from Network again 2 or 3 years ago. Really good price. I thought, you know what, it does feel like a bit of a gaping hole in my collection here, that I've got all the other box sets relating to this series, but not this one itself. And it is pretty good, really. It's not anywhere near as good as Man About the House and George and Mildred, but there is funny episodes. I think I judged it a little bit harshly some years ago, whereas now it's pretty good. I do like it. There again, not a lot to see, no subtitles, but it's a nice set to have. It stars Richard O'Sullivan playing the character of Robin Tripp again, who was the main character in Man About the House, but he moves in with his girlfriend above a little bistro that he opens in Fulham, I think. And he's often having to deal with his girlfriend's father, who would become his father-in-law, and Mr. Riddle, the one-armed pot washer. It's very 70s, very dated, but it is very, very watchable, as are all the things that I've shown you. So I hope you've enjoyed part 1 of this, where I've showed you some of my comedy collection on DVD, and a couple of Blu-rays there as well, from 1960s all the way through to the end of the 70s, and of course there was some anomalies there that ended up being from the 80s. But in part 2, I will show you my comedy collection spanning the 1980s and 1990s, and there should be some noughties in there as well, looking at it. So please, will you join me in a couple of days or so for that one. Thank you to all my subscribers and all my patrons and everyone who has watched any of my videos. And join me for part 2 of my comedy collection very soon. Cheers everyone. See ya!